thing. Boom, we are officially recording. Shout out to those of you guys that are taking the time to watch this back on the replay. But what is going on, everybody? We got Cochrane in the building. We got Grand Prairie, New Brunswick, Bolivia. We got Moncton, New Brunswick, Australia, Calgary, Lincoln, Nebraska, Alaska. We've got, let's see, we got Hungary, Nigeria, Jamaica. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Winnipeg, Ontario, Serbia. Fantastic. We are worldwide on this call, ladies and gentlemen. We love to see it. Currently out here in Montreal, Quebec, myself personally. And excited for day two. Excited for day two. For those of you guys that missed yesterday's call, we do have the recording posted. It's in the free trial Telegram channel. And we basically went over some of the important things to really make the most of the free trial yesterday. So we were going over kind of broker setup, platforms, how to take a trade, understanding some of the basic principles like risk management, risk to reward, and just generally speaking, understanding some of the basics when it comes to trading. So today, what we're going to do is basically overview some tools and some resources that make the whole trading process a little bit easier, a little bit more simple, especially for someone who's maybe brand new and just getting started in the space. And even for those of you guys that have experience, some tools that you can use to take your trading to the next level. So if you're in a position to do so, would love to see some more cameras on. I see a few beautiful faces. We love to see it. If you're in a position to do so, like I said, feel free to throw your camera on. Don't be shy. But couple of things. So first thing, we do have a special guest on today's call that we'll also be hearing from in a second, in a little bit, that I'm excited to introduce, and I will be sure to give him a proper introduction when the time comes. But just know we got a special one in store. We'll probably be on this session for a little over an hour, just so you guys have the idea, the expectation when it comes to the duration of today's call. Okay. And looking forward to diving into some pretty cool and exciting things with you guys when it comes to how you can get to that next level in your trading. And something that I wanted to overview with you guys just really quickly before we dive into the actual training is something that for me was a really significant kind of pivotal point in my journey. I shared a little bit about my story yesterday. I'll save you guys all the details, but I'll just recap it. So, started trading and investing in 2018. Been doing this for 7 years now officially. And when I started my first year or so, I was really just trial and error, trying to figure it out on my own. In 2019, I actually got introduced to my first mentor, and I'll never forget my good friend from high school. Actually, he had reached out to me. We were, in a couple classes together. We actually shared the passion of playing hockey. I don't know if anybody in here is a big hockey guy like me, but grew up playing the sport, played for 7 years. And he reached out to me because he saw that I was posting a little bit about some of the investing that I was doing at the time. And he reached out, he's like, "Hey man, I think, it'd be great for us to connect," because he was also, dabbling in the markets. And he actually introduced me to my first mentor, my first true mentor. We were both on the very early stages in our journeys. So he was actually working with someone at the time that was extremely successful, like very, very successful at a high level in the markets. This is someone who, dropped out of high school to pursue trading full time at a very young age. Okay. And this is someone who, at the time when we met him, was doing around $20,000 a month from the markets. Now, this was back in 2019. To this day, he's done some amazing, amazing things. And I mean, money aside, I think the impact that he's made on my life and as well as the lives of literally thousands of other people is really something not to be taken lightly. There's a quote that I mentioned yesterday. I'm going to say it again today from Tony Robbins: "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." You can go out there and learn a high income skill online and just, do your thing, be this person who's traveling the world, trading, having a blast, doing some sort of remote business that gives you that freedom of location. And you could be doing super well for yourself, but you might not find that fulfillment if you're not giving it back to others, if you're not supporting others, if you're not able to pay it forward. And this was someone that at the time was already making a great and tremendous impact on a lot of people. And now it's even bigger and better than before. And what's interesting too is, he didn't just stop at making $20,000 a month. He moved forward into making, multiple six figures per month at certain times in his career. And he's someone who's, made a tremendous impact on my life. But I say that all to say, mentorship, if there's any shortcut to success, mentorship is the shortcut to success. Being able to learn from people that have what you want, have been where you are, and can ultimately show you the way to get to where it is that they're at in a far shorter period of time was something that I was blessed with the opportunity to have in 2019. So, like I said, a little over a year into my experience, got introduced to him, and that was something that really shifted my entire trajectory in this industry, and it really inspired me to start listening to people that have what I want. There's a success principle that I'll share with you guys that you can write down, and it's the first success principle, or one of the many success principles, is who do you listen to? You want to listen to people that have what you want, have been where you are, and can ultimately support you in getting to where it is that you want to go in a shorter period of time. You don't have to do it alone. That's one of the beautiful things about our community here is we want to support each other and be in this together. And so doing this whole, boot camp over the course of 3 days is a day two. We got day three tomorrow. More trade ideas loading probably this evening, also going into tomorrow as well. Is you guys are in a position where you have that support system. You have that ability to be in a place where you can rest assured knowing that you're working with people that have done this for an extended period of time, for years and years and years. And one of the places that we have access to with one of our strategic partnerships with a company called Jifu is arguably some of the most simple and streamlined education in the game, but also in addition to that, some of the best AI tools and resources to make the whole trading process a little bit easier for everybody that's first starting out. So we're going to be going over some of those things this evening, and I'm excited to share some of these things with you guys. But before I do, there's one thing in particular that I want to share that we haven't shared yet since we started the free trial. And it's not anywhere in the fast start or anything that everybody would have gone through as well, but it's actually one of the number one tools that has to be addressed, that has to be shared with everybody on this call when it comes to trading. And it's actually, I'll pull it up on screen here. It's something called TradingView. Okay, TradingView is probably the most popular charting platform out there. You can use it for free. Of course, there's paid versions as well. But this is a website, and it's also an application that you can download for free from whatever App Store or Google Play Store or whatever it is that you're using. Okay, and it's called TradingView. Okay, tradingview.com. And then you have the TradingView application as well. Now, this is just to give you guys an idea of what the day-to-day process usually looks like for a trader inside of our community. This is the platform that we will use to analyze charts, to be able to gauge and anticipate where the markets are going based on where they've come from, what they've done previously, and based on three different types of what we call analysis. Okay, now this is the first thing that I want to talk about because I think it's important to address this, especially for a lot of you that are on here that are maybe newer. There's three different types of analysis. Okay, TradingView is a great tool. I wanted to start with that. But there's three types of analysis. Write this down in your notes. Three types of analysis. Okay. This is in no particular order. These are all three important things to consider when it comes to creating what is called an edge in the financial markets. Okay. One thing that we talked about yesterday that gives you an edge as a trader is using positive risk to reward ratios, putting yourself in a position where you could maybe be losing more trades than you're winning and still be profitable. That's what we talked about on yesterday's training. One of the things we talked about. But another thing that gives you an edge, that gives you, I guess you could say, really, it's kind of like a strategy. I guess you could say these are three things you can consider with a strategy in the markets. Okay. But an edge is basically what sets you apart from the rest of the traders, from the rest of the individuals that are participating in the markets to increase your own profitability. Okay. So the first type of analysis is called fundamental analysis. Okay. Again, this is in no particular order. All three of these things are important to consider. All right, but write this down. First one is fundamental analysis. Now, this is in regards to the fundamentals. Okay, so if we're talking about like currencies, It's how is the economy doing for these different currencies, right? You take a look at US dollar, obviously the US economy, stuff like tariffs. All right, these are all things that fundamentally are going to influence what the strength or weakness of the dollar is looking like. Okay, so that's fundamental analysis. All right, so things like news, economics, these tariffs that are happening in the States right now, these are things that are influencing the strength or weakness of the US dollar. And just like with the US dollar, any other currency for that matter. All right. The second type of analysis is technical analysis. That's where TradingView really comes into play. This is your ability to understand the charts that you're looking at and be able to gauge based on what's already happened, where we're anticipating the trend to continue, or where we're anticipating the exchange rate or price or value of different assets that we're trading, where we're anticipating them to go. Okay, so this has a lot more to do with chart patterns. This has a lot more to do with, actually looking at and analyzing the graphs themselves, which are showing the fluctuation of price over time. So we're going to get into more of the technicals this evening. And then the third type of analysis is called sentimental analysis. All right, sentimental analysis. And this has to do with the overall feel, or the vast majority of traders, the overall feel that they have, as to whether they're bullish, anticipating the, asset to continue doing well and going higher, or bearish, which is the inverse, to see the price of something or the valuation of something decline and fall in value. All right, but sentimental analysis is your ability to take a look at the entire market, or the entire, I guess you could say, bias on the market from almost like a third person perspective, like taking yourself out of the equation and considering, what are the vast majority of traders, what are the vast majority of people feeling around the market sentiment right now? So if we take a look at the tariffs, for example, that is something that is fundamentally influencing the US dollar. Okay. But the sentiment around tariffs is that in some instances, it's really good for the dollar. In other instances, it's really bad for the dollar. Okay. So depending on the angle and the way that you're analyzing things, sentimental analysis is something that's important to consider as well. Now, I speak on behalf of myself and a lot of people in the community when I say that number one and number two are probably the two most important types of analysis that you're going to want to consider when it comes to becoming independently profitable in the markets. And let's face it, this might be the first time that you guys are hearing about the three types of analysis. Yeah, this might be the first time that you're even looking at a chart and being like, okay, let me try and anticipate what price is going to do next. And you might think to yourself, well, Donnie, how is this any different than me just betting on red in roulette at the casino? Okay. And the way that this is so much different is because of the way you can develop an understanding of number one, chart patterns and the tendencies in the market. And number two, you're setting up the rules so that you can win with risk to reward, risk management, and being able to use some of the training that we shared yesterday so that you're in a position where you don't need to be winning all the time to be profitable. You can be losing more trades than you're winning and still be profitable with the right risk to reward ratios. Okay. So, of course, we talk a lot more about this inside the community as well, but tip of the iceberg, these are three things that are important to consider when it comes to trading, or the three types of analysis. So, I'm going to give you guys two different resources that will help you with both fundamental analysis and technical analysis, respectively. And we're going to go into, especially on the technical side of things, some tools that we have access to with our partnership with Jifu that make the process of analyzing a lot quicker, a lot easier, and something that can really give you an edge in the market. So let's talk about fundamental analysis first. All right. Again, this has to do with the more economic stuff. You might look at that and be like, Donnie, this is, I have no interest in understanding the economics. No problem. Okay. It's no problem. You don't need to be some economic expert. All right. But there is a website that is super beneficial. It's super helpful. It's free. You can access it whenever you'd like. It's called forexfactory.com. And what this website will show you are the low, medium, and high impact news releases that are scheduled for specific days and times for different currencies. So right now, if we were to toggle on all of the news events. Okay, this is for the week that we're currently in. So starting Sunday, April 20th, right? The market is open 24 hours, 5 days a week. For the currency market, when we're talking about, Great British Pound, US dollar, Canadian dollar, New Zealand dollar, these are assets that are being traded 24 hours, 5 days a week. It's unlike the stock market, which is, from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Okay, these are currencies that are trading all the time, 24/5, with the exception of the weekends. All right, but the market opens at 5 p.m. Eastern and closes Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. All right, so we can come over here on forexfactory.com, and I'll drop this link in the chat for you guys to favorite this for future reference. It's a great resource. But I can take a look at this website and I can know with clarity and with specificity exactly when high impact news is going to be released so that I can position myself accordingly. Maybe that means you stay out of the market during high impact news. Maybe that means you position yourself before high impact news in anticipation of the release, whatever the case may be. All right. So the different folders that you see on Forex Factory. All right, first things first, you have the gray folders, which you can kind of see here. And this has to do with non-economic events, but typically it's just holidays. So you can see on Monday, there was a lot of bank closures in Europe. CHF is the Swiss franc, EUR is the euro, GBP is the Great British Pound. So basically, all of Europe was closed on Monday in recognition of basically the Easter long weekend. All right. The yellow folders are low impact news events. So these are news events that are coming out that probably won't have too much of an impact on the US dollar. In this case, US dollar folder, right? NZD, that's New Zealand dollar, trade balance release, yellow folder, probably, not something that will usually have too high of an impact. You then have the orange folders, which are medium impact expected. So you might see a little bit of volatility when when these certain types of news are released, but typically not going to be anything major. And then the ones you want to look out for the most and pay attention to the most are these red folders. All right, these red folders are high impact expected news releases that will certainly add to the volatility in the market. Okay. Now, for me personally, I like to, from the calendar page on forexfactory.com, go into the filter section and just focus on holidays and high impact news events. Holidays will usually mean that there's not going to be a whole lot of volatility or movement in the market. So I want to be aware of those days and just take the day off, go do my thing, whatever. And then the high impact news events, obviously, I want to be aware of those before they are released. That way I don't get surprised when the market becomes volatile all of a sudden. All right. Something that's cool is that you can actually look at this for more than just currencies. A lot of people don't know this. If you're experienced, this might be a cognition for you because I didn't know about this for a while. If you hover over where it says Forex Factory, okay, you actually have the ability. Let me just see. I think they might have changed the website here. You can actually see let me see if I can find out here. Market. Let's see. You can actually see the influence that news events will have on crypto as well. Normally, it'll give you a drop down here. Page layout, Forex focused, macro, system, custom. Interesting. So they actually updated Forex Factory. Usually, it's something you can just easily toggle between. But nonetheless, I guess we'll just showcase the currency one. This is the one that we've mainly focused. Oh, it's right here. There we go. Perfect. So metals calendar, energy calendar, crypto calendar. So if I go into crypto, let's say I'm focused on like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you can actually pull this up and it'll show you, in this case, there's none for this week, but the high impact news events that will be relevant for cryptocurrency specifically. So if we go into next week, right? Next week, nothing until Friday, you have the NFP news release, the non-farm employment change, non-farm payroll release, which will have an impact, a high impact on crypto. So you can actually look beyond just currencies. You can really get clarity across all markets for which news events are going to be the most relevant to you. And it doesn't mean that there's not going to be volatility on other days when there's not high impact news. Of course there is. Today, for example, we saw quite a lot of volatility for crypto specifically. It was great, actually great volatility for crypto today. And there was no particular high impact news events for currencies or crypto. It was just the market was just very volatile today, you know? So typically I'll look at these on my weekly Outlook call. Yes, on Sundays. We'll usually take a look at this for for the economic calendar and outlook for sure. So, great question. We're looking looking for sells on those days. So it's going to depend, right? It's going to depend on a number of different things, and usually we talk a lot more about this in the more advanced training calls. So I don't want to get too deep into it today, but we do anticipate how news will release in two different ways. Number one, you can actually see the forecast before it comes out. So, for example, tonight during the London session, there's a bunch of news, from 3:15 a.m. Eastern to 4:30 a.m. Eastern, because over in Europe, that's when the markets are opening over there. And so, they'll give you the forecast or expected outcome for each of these folders before it's released. And then you'll see when they actually do get released, the actual number and statistic will be updated accordingly. So if we go to last week, you can see that there was forecasts and there was actual. Okay. Green is usually going to mean that it was a better than expected outcome. Red means that it was a little bit worse than expected for the outcome. And so there's certain things that we'll consider when it comes to that. That's one way we'll anticipate. The second way that we'll anticipate is based on the technicals, based on the second form of analysis, which is technical analysis, based on what the charts are looking like and what we're seeing in the market in terms of chart patterns and things of that nature. You can probably, I'm not too sure if you're able to favorite this to your phone home screen. Potentially, though, you can try. You can try like going to share and see if it gives you the add shortcut to homepage button. Because yeah, this is a great resource to have as a potential, app and something you can use on a regular basis to anticipate high impact news. So that's the first tool. The second tool that helps more on the technical analysis side of things, which again is the, understanding of what the chart is actually doing, right? Taking a look at something like TradingView to analyze and give you an edge based on what the market is looking like, the fluctuation of price over time. You can do all kinds of customization on TradingView. You can change like the colors of these different what are called candles. Okay, the bars that you're seeing here, the white bars are showing an increase in price over that duration of time. Black bars, in my particular scenario with my chart, mean that the asset fell during that period of time. And so this is what we'll use primarily for technical analysis. Now, the individual that I want to bring up, who will be kind of co-hosting this training with you guys alongside myself when it comes to technical analysis and some of the tools that we use, is someone that I've personally known and worked alongside for the past few years. Okay, this is someone who I've seen progress tremendously. He actually, similarly, we started in the same space in crypto. And when we first got connected, he had a little bit of experience, but he was looking to take his trading to the next level. He was looking to really go from where he was to where he wanted to be, which was ultimately independently profitable and in a position where he could do something like this to create a serious additional stream of income for himself without having to, get a second job or he was really wanting to increase his income with this skill. And this is someone who's very teachable, very coachable. He was the best student, and usually the best students become the best teachers because they've actually put in the vast majority of time, energy, and effort to get to a point where they've understood a skill to a point of being able to teach it. And in doing so, it's kind of an interesting dynamic, the teacher-student relationship. It's like the teacher is learning just as much from the student as the student is from the teacher. It's like a cool dynamic. And so I've seen, Mike really excel as not only a student, but now a mentor inside of the community. He's someone that, we got to start calling him Mr. Golden Era because this guy is, an absolute stud when it comes to using one of the tools that we use for technical analysis and for identifying trade ideas. He's someone who was like the first one to really get it down inside the organization. Like everybody was looking to him for this particular scanner that we're going to be going over with you guys. And obviously, above all else, he's been trading for years. He's been doing this for quite some time. He's someone who's supported hundreds of people at this point to create this, side income from trading, and for some people, full-time income from trading. Some of the individuals that he's working with and supporting. And so, with that being said, I want to go ahead and bring up, and we'll kind of be co-hosting the session for the remainder of today, going into the different scanners and tools that we have for technical analysis. But with that being said, I want you guys to go ahead and drop some eights in the chat for my brother, Mike Hoffman. Man, it's great to have you on the call. I'm going to see if I can bring you up here and add to the spotlight. Amazing. There he is, the man himself. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's great to be here. Excited for day two of the free trial. Keep dropping those eights if you guys are excited for this free trial. If you guys have learned something over the last, yesterday's call and today's call. Donnie said you always got to be in a learning state. Doesn't matter if you're the mentee or the mentor, we're always learning. You've never got it, you're always getting it. And even myself, I've learned a lot, even just from, there's a couple things I picked up on this call today. We've been here for about 30 minutes, and it's crazy because every time, I get on with Donnie on his sessions, Tuesday mornings, Thursday mornings, Sunday evenings, and then these, calls that we do like this, there's always something that I'm learning, right? Every single time. If you got a notepad, get a blue pen, blue ink, and a white piece of paper on some notes. That's how you're gonna retain the information that you're hearing that we're gonna be going over. All right, but is it cool if I just share with you guys real quick my story, just a little bit about how I got introduced into the space and
Tell him,
how I
man.
got to
Tell
where
him.
I'm at now?
100%. I'll give you the stage.
Awesome. Well, like Donnie said, my name's Mike Hoffman, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm 22 years old, and I got introduced into this space of, um, crypto in the very beginning in 2017 was the first time I got exposed to it. Right, I actually got exposed to it from my dad, and at the time I was what, like 15 years old, something like that, and I didn't really understand how it all worked. I didn't know if that's something that I wanted to do, but I was like, you know what? I'll try it, because my dad sat me down. He's like, hey, send me $100. I'm going to invest it for you, and we'll see what happens from here. Right? He's like, it's this new thing. It's called crypto. I'm looking into it. I put some money in. Just send me $100. I'll invest it for you. We'll see what happens. And I was like, all right, whatever. It's $100. I'll go spend it on a pair of shoes, or I'll go spend it on some food or some drinks with the guys or whatever. And I made that investment and I completely forgot about it, right? Sports was my passion. My parents, they didn't really have much money or things when we were growing up as kids. I always saw them struggle and, you know, constantly just working paycheck to paycheck, trying to put food on the table and catch up with bills and everything. And I knew that I wanted to do something for them that was going to help them get out of that cycle that they were in, right? But I didn't know what until, I fell across basketball. That was my passion. And that's what I really wanted to do was play professional basketball. And I was supposed to, things through high school went really well. I was supposed to go overseas and play after I graduated, but I graduated in 2020, and then that offer that I had to go out there, it fell through, right? I wasn't able to go travel. The world got shut down. I was kind of stuck. It was like, what do I do now? And at that same time, it's kind of funny how these things work, right? It's definitely God working behind the scenes and pulling the strings. But at the same time, after that happened, my dad sat me down. He's like, hey, now that you're 18, this was after I graduated already. He's like, now that you're 18, you're allowed to open up your own crypto account for you, right? Legally. And now I can actually transfer you the profit that you made from your investment. And, he was like,
I think we're losing you a little bit, Mikey. What a great freeze frame. Technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure he'll be back.
all right, we're back.
He's back.
I'm not sure what happened, but it just all of a sudden my trading view just popped up and everybody was gone. It's like, no. But we're back. But basically, he said, we got to open up your own account now that you're 18. And we did that. He's like, I got to send your profits. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, how did I make profits? It was just $100. It's not going to be that much. And basically, he ended up transferring me over $60,000 US from a $100 investment that I had made. I want you guys to take that in, right? It was $100 that I had put into crypto, forgot about it, and in 3 years it grew to $60,000. It's not something that happens every time, and I'm not gonna sit here and tell you guys that every one of you is gonna do that, right? But it was something that completely changed the way that I looked at money because at 18 years old, having $60,000 like in your hand that you can do whatever you want with after having nothing and not knowing where that money came from, it puts a different perspective on everything, right? And then from there on, I was like, I got to figure out how I can make more of this money, right? So this crypto thing really works. It's like when you see something like that, you want to know and understand how these markets work so you can do it again and again and again, right? But that was the problem that I had was I didn't know who to go to, right? For the to learn how to make more money, how the markets worked, and learn all these different things like fundamental analysis and technical analysis, these different things. And you know, I I kind of got lucky, to be honest with you. I got very lucky, and ended up growing that money. Riding it out through the bull market when crypto was just on a high, and I ended up it was like just under $200,000 by the end of it by 2021. And then in 2021 as well, the crypto market had crashed and I basically lost most of that money that I had made, right? Because I didn't have the right mentorship around me. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know left from right when I would look at a chart. I just knew that the money in my account was going up, right? And then the money in my account was going down. And I was looking for people to, help me get into this space and teach me, but it really didn't happen until the almost the end of 2022 when my buddy called me. He's like, "Hey, I just met this guy who makes millions of dollars teaching people how to make money in crypto. He's got a huge crypto portfolio and all this stuff." And I was like, "Bro, like I need to talk to him, right? This might be my way out." And that was 2.5 years ago now. And thanks to my buddy sharing this with me, now 2.5 years later, I'm not working a job. I'm doing this full time. You know, been able to almost get myself back to where I was previously and doing it the right way with the right people around me, with the right information, right? Because information is very, very powerful. The education that we have has definitely changed my life and a lot of people's lives that we work with. A lot of you guys on this call as well. If you're new and you haven't been able to experience that yet, take in everything that we're talking about here and definitely use it all to your advantage, right? Because it's something that's completely changed my life. It's completely changed Donnie's life, a lot of other people on here. And, I wouldn't be able to sit in front of you guys here and teach you these things if I wouldn't have studied the information first, right? And that's really what it comes down to is who's going to go out there and study the information the most and actually take action on the things that they study, right? Because you can get a lot of knowledge and take all these things in, but if you don't apply that knowledge, it doesn't matter because you're not going to get the results, right? You can know everything from A to Z about trading and never once place a trade, you're never going to make money, right? It just doesn't make sense. So you have to go out there, apply it, back test it, practice, 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 and you will make money in the long run, right? This isn't a get rich quick. This is a get rich over time and a stay rich over time, right? That's the biggest thing that I've learned. And, definitely excited to share with you guys the scanner, the golden era scanner that Donnie was talking about. Do you want me to go into that right now, Donnie?
Yeah, 100%. Let's do it.
Bet.
Drop some
Let's
threes in the chat. What a crazy story Mike has. It's such a definitely not a typical story. It's a cool story though, for sure. For sure.
It's actually crazy too, because one of the first people that I learned from was actually Donnie. I jumped on one of his sessions. Somebody was like, "Hey, watch this guy. He's like teaching people how to trade," and I was like, "I'll bet. Like, this is my first experience to this." And now, 2.5 years later, we're actually doing trainings together. It's crazy. Let me see
Well
here.
deserved, brother. Full circle.
100%. Let me fix this here. Awesome. Sweet. So, golden era, for those of you guys that don't know, we have a bunch of different scanners here on our Jifu website. Right? There's a lot of basic videos that you can go through that show you and teach you the basic fundamentals of trading. But today I want to focus on the scanners, and specifically golden era is the one that I use, right? We have Trend Wave, Smart Money Scanner, Smart Monix, Kill Shot, and Sniper Pro. But for me, I fell in love with golden era because I love to trade gold, right? So out of all the different currencies, gold is the one that I love to trade the most. And the reason being is with the scanner, it actually simplifies it so much for you, right? If you understand which way a market is moving, which I'm going to, oh, I don't know what happened there. I have to refresh this. I just clicked something and it went crazy on me. Let's go back here. But what you need to understand with trading, and one of the things that made it's so much easier for me was understanding that the market can only move one of three ways. Right? Let me write this up for you. Oh, let's make that bigger. So one of three ways. Actually, I'm not going to write this out. I'm going to draw it for you. All right. So the first way the market can move is up. Right? The market can move up. Second way, the market can move down. And the third way, the market can move sideways. Those are the only three ways the market can move. It doesn't matter how far back you go, you'll see that the market is moving up, the market's moving down, and then in between here, you can see that there's certain areas where the market it does not go below or above for a while. It just kind of moves sideways, right? And that's called a consolidation, if you want to write that down. And once you figure out that the market can move one of three ways, it makes it a little bit easier because you see the different patterns, right? With gold, it loves to move a lot, it loves to move quickly, and it loves to move consistently, right? So actually, let me just go here, go like this. So one thing, let me see in the chat box quick. Love gold. I love gold too. So with golden era, one thing that you have to understand is that gold, it bounces specifically off of these key levels where it's their fractional levels, right? So something that's called a pip is a unit of measurement of a market moving up or down in value, right? So gold, for example, each pip that gold moves up is 10 cents in value of gold, right? So if gold were to now go from 3358.885 to 0.985, that would be one pip, right? So now we see gold just drop 2 pips, right? And what gold does is you see these lines here going all the way across the screen. These lines are specifically at every 50 pips in gold's value, right? So if you go into horizontal line, you can literally just type in 3360. We'll put it there. You can see that it's directly on that line, right? 60, then there's one at 55, then there's one at 50, 45, 40, 35. You kind of get the gist of it. right? So on these key levels, what you'll also notice if you actually just look at the screen and look at the scanner here, you can see that gold is bouncing off of these levels consistently, right? You can kind of see that just in here, where just this level at 33.50, we kind of touched that level, bounced below. Then we went all the way down to 33.35, bounced off of it here, went up to 33.40. We bounced off of it a couple times there, 33.50. Then we kind of broke through that 40 zone, bounced off of it one more time, and now we went higher. Right. So it's constantly moving and bouncing off of these levels where it's every 50 pips in on gold's level, right? That's why it's called the golden era. It only works with gold specifically because it marks out these key levels. If you try it on any other currency, like cryptocurrencies or any other forex currency, it will not work because the the pips are different, the levels are different, and it just works very easily with gold. That's why it's called the golden arrow scanner, right? So after you understand these different key zones, these fractional levels, um, the next thing that you'll see is you'll see this yellow box right here, right? So this yellow box, what it will do is it will pop up at these fractional levels, right? So you can see right in the middle of 3360 is where that zone popped up. And then if you actually measure this, go from here, it's actually 5 pips above that fractional level and 5 pips below that fractional level, right? So at 3360.5 and 3359.5. And that's your area where you're going to look for trade ideas, right? Where you're going to look to enter into the market. And right now, we don't want to do anything, right? Because the market is now active, but we haven't actually got an entry, right? Because the zone, when it's yellow, means that it's an active zone. You're able to look for entries in that area once it goes back into that zone. But what you want to wait for first is obviously the market has to be moving in a certain direction, right? In this case, right now, gold over the last little while has been on this, well, I guess really just since Sunday, just been tearing to the downside. It went from $3,500 US per ounce of gold, it dropped down $200 in value, just about. Right. And what you can see, what we were talking about earlier, is the market can only move in three directions. It was moving consistently down. Right. You can see it's making these waves. It's just moving down, moving down, moving down. Right. And now we kind of hit this area where gold's trying to figure out what it wants to do. Right. It's slowly starting to move back up. Right. The market opened up here, down here, which the market, like Donnie said earlier, it closes from uh, 2 p.m. PST to 3 p.m. PST. That's 5 p.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern, just for 1 hour every single day. And when the market opened back up again at 3 o'clock Pacific time, it made a huge gap in the market and actually opened up right down here. Right. So when the market closed at 2, it was at 3,380. It opened back up at 3324. All right. So sometimes you'll see these big jumps in the market, they'll happen. But right now, gold's just trying to figure out and kind of filling that gap in. And then from there, we'll kind of see what's going to happen with gold. Is it going to continue higher like it currently is? Right. We kind of have that little bit of a trend starting to happen where we kind of found a low point, right? We created a high point, came back lower, and now we're at a high point again, right? So we're starting to see kind of that swing high with gold. So right now is not really a time where I would want to enter in the market. I just kind of want to watch, see what happens, let it play out a little bit more, and show me what it wants to do, right? That's the biggest thing with trading is let the market come to you, right? As soon as you're rushing into the market, trying to take every single trade or, catch this candle when it just jumps up a few pips, like you don't want to chase the market. You want to let the market come to you. That's the best advice I can give you is patience is key. Let the market come to you and you will see better results that you want to see, right? Because we could have jumped in buys right down here. Yeah, we would have been up, right? We would be up quite a lot right now. But it's kind of a risky play because you don't know, is gold going to fill that gap right away or is it going to continue dropping, right? There's no kind of market structure. The market isn't showing me I want to consistently go higher. I want to go lower. I'm just moving sideways. That's why for me, I'm staying out of the market, right? And I have stayed out of the market until I see the market developing something, right? Showing me what it wants to do. But with the scanner, as you can see, right now we have that gray zone. And basically, what you want to see happen is one of two things, right? So as you see right now, we have a red candle here. And basically that red candle, if we close below this low point of this gray box, this gray zone, then we will get a check mark below the zone and it will turn yellow, right? If we see this candle now go higher and turn into a green candle and close above the zone, right? Above this gray box, it will give us a check mark above the zone, right? So you want to see one of those two things happen, right? Either we get a green candle closing above the zone, or we get a red candle closing below the zone, right? That's the only two things that can happen at this point, or the market can continue going lower. But before you enter a trade, one of those two things needs to happen, right? You need to see a check mark and the zone needs to be yellow. And from there, what you want to see not next is, let's say, let me just draw a diagram up here. A little bit higher. There we go. So let's say the market is doing its thing, it's going higher. These are candles, just so you kind of get the visual, right? We have a lower candle, higher candle. I'm going to change the colors of these like that. Right, but the market's like going higher. We have candles going lower. I don't know what happened there. Candles going lower, candles going higher. And eventually, from one of these levels, let's put this here. That's one level. And then 40. Those are some rough levels at 40, 34, 35, and 34, 40. Those are the two levels, right? And then what you'll see happen is you'll see this rectangle appear, right? At first, it will be gray, 5 pips above the zone, 5 pips below the zone. And then you'll see a candle that it will either close above, right? Let's say this one closed above. And then this zone will turn yellow, right? We'll just change this to yellow. Just to kind of give you the visual. And then the next candle that you want to see is, let's say that this candle closed all the way up here. It was green. We got that check mark. The next thing you want to see is you want the market to come back down into this yellow golden zone, right? And that is your entry point. If the market closes above the golden area, the golden zone, you want the market to retrace back into the zone. Now that's your active entry point because you have the check mark and the yellow zone. You wait for the market to come back into the zone and you're looking for buys now because the market gave us a green candle to the upside with a retracement down. That's our buy entry, and we're looking for the market to continue higher, right? So the opposite of that would be if the market closed below, right, and gave us a red candle, we would want the market to come back higher and give us an entry to sell the market. Does that make sense? So if the candle closes below the zone and is red and gives us a yellow check mark down here, we want the market to come back up into the zone and then we enter. But if the market gives us a green candle and closes above the golden zone, we want the market to come back down to enter a buy. Right? So very simple. That's really all you're looking for. And then from there, we'll see what the market is doing here. See, right now we got a clean example there. This zone was just gray, and we had the candle close below, right? We had a green check mark or a yellow check mark, sorry. And then now we would wait for the market to come back into the zone. But notice how in this example right now where the market is, the next candle that opened, it just immediately shot up. This is why I said that it's important to know that the market moves in one of three directions, right? If you don't see that the market has any kind of structure, which right now, all we're seeing is this massive push up, it's kind of hard to figure out, is the market going to continue higher? Is it going to go lower? Right? You don't really want to take an entry in the middle of this kind of a swing where gold is just continuing higher. Right? We want to let the market develop, come to kind of a standstill, and then develop into something. Right? Down here, where the market was kind of moving sideways, we probably could have found something in here. But in this area, because the market, look, it called out a sell, right? It closed below, gave us the check mark. We wanted it to come back into the zone, but then it absolutely just blasted right through it, right? That's because you need to be patient. You need to wait for the market to show you signs of strength in either direction, right? The market didn't show us that it wanted to go down. It just gave us a potential trade idea from this area saying sell because this one candle closed below the zone, right? So you really want to make sure that you wait for the market to show you these different setups, right? Not just enter when the market's already swinging high, high, high. And just because it's at a high point now you're selling. That's not the market telling you that, or the scanner telling you that gold's going to go down. It's just telling you a potential trade idea. But doing the technical analysis, you can see that there's really nothing to show us that gold is wanting to go down in this area, right? Especially because the last couple candles are all green and we're working to fill this huge gap that we have here, right? It's not a place where you want to take a sell on gold, especially because it does things like this where we were saying every one of these gray lines is 50 pips. Well, here the candle closed below here at 3367.8, and gold already went up to 3380.6. That's 120 pips on gold in like 2 minutes. Right? It's not a trade where we want to be, or not a zone where we want to be entering a trade in at that specific point. Right? But after we get this entry, let's say, we had a perfect execution. This was our entry that we got at 30, 34, 40 on gold. What it will do next is what I do next, and what the scanner will show you after is it will give you a zone where you have your stop loss, right? So from your entry, the scanner will call out a stop loss from the edge of the zone, right? So if this is 3440.5, the scanner will call out 15 pips from that point, right? So from there, it will be at 3442 would be your stop loss. And because we're selling in this market, stop loss is above the entry zone. And then what it will do, it will give you a first take profit where you want to take your money out into your account at 34, 38, right? 15 pips, stop loss, 15 pips, take profit number one. And then it will also give you a second take profit, which will be 15 pips from there, right? So 30 pips or 15 pip take profit number one, 30 pip take profit number two, right? Very simple, doesn't overcomplicate it. It's for very quick trades. And what we do is we use this on the 5 minute time frame and we just look for quick trades in and out of the market. That's what it's used for, right? Sometimes if you understand and see gold on the bigger time frames, you can see what it wants to do longer term, and you can extend your trades for a longer period of time, right? Like in the hourly time frame. Right now, we don't really see too much going on right here, but let's say we were looking for something down here. We found an entry on the 5 minute time frame. We wanted to hold it. We held it all the way up. You can do that, right? The first take profit area, this is what I do personally, is I'll take two trades uh, on the same trade. I'll take two entries, right? So I'll stack my entries. So let's say I have $100 in my live account. I take one entry at 0.02, and then my second entry I will also take at a 0.02, right? So basically, what it would look like is, let's say we took a long from here, and then another long exactly from that same entry. This first one would just be a 15 pip stop loss, 15 pip take profit number one. Then the second one would be same stop loss, but a higher take profit, the second take profit, right? And if I wanted to, I could actually extend that and hold my trade for longer, right? You can do that if you see on the bigger time frames that you might see price develop into something more, right? You can hold those trades for longer, but realistically, that first trade hits the take profit. The first trade is done. Now you let the second trade develop into whatever, right? And you take the stop loss, put it into break even or into profit. So now if the market does go against you, you're not losing any money, right? You have two entries. One of them, you already took your profit. You already made money. It's in your account. The second one, you can kind of leave that to an area that is of your choice, but you move your stop loss into profit. That way, if it comes back down against you, you're still making a little bit of money, right? Or break even at worst. All right, so always take two entries with the scanner. They go very quick. I'm just gonna see if there's some questions in the chat box here, but it goes very quick sometimes with the scanner, right? As you can see, the last few 5 minute gold went pretty crazy. Um, Well, let me see what's in the chat box here. Can you input any calls inside this bar if you do call out? Um, so I see that a question in the chat that says, would it be fair to wait for the retracing candle to close first before entering? You can wait for it to close. I personally don't. Um, I like to enter as soon as the market comes into that area, right? Because we're on the smaller time frames. It will literally just touch that zone quickly and then react off of that zone. Um, Definitely, I don't wait for it to close. I know some people who do. I don't like to. That's not how I've used it. The scanner, for me, as soon as the market comes back in, let's say this candle closed right here, and we're waiting for the market to come back higher. This is our zone. As soon as it would touch in here, I would enter that trade and then put my stop loss above here, take profit here and here. I'm not waiting for the market to close because with gold, it likes to move very quickly, right? If you see that something is lining up with gold, it's moving in the direction that you want, you have the perfect setup, then you can enter that right away. Um, if we see any call outs, I will put them in here, but it doesn't look like we're gonna get anything just yet. I was hoping we would get something, but as you can see, gold's just moving kind of crazy. It's not really giving us something. Um, but yeah, if we do see something, if I see something, I will definitely throw it in the chat box here for you guys. And then, how do you really know it could be the time to make your move? Awesome question. So with these different areas and with the market moving in one of three directions, right? There's something that will happen, something that's called market structure that makes it easier for you to identify which way the market wants to continue going in, right? So if the market is moving consistently higher, this is called a bullish market structure, right? In order to see that, you'll have 4 points, right? So the starting point of that move to the upside, then you'll have a high that's created off of that starting point. You will see the market retrace lower, which will give you a third point, and then somewhere off of that third point, it will react and make a new high, right? So that's the beginning of a bullish market structure. And the same is for a bearish, right? For the market going down, you have a starting point, that first kind of area that it created, it will come back, make a high. So this is that low, creates a lower high, right? Which this high is lower than this high, and then it will create another low, right? I'll put this here. So with the bullish structure, you will have a lower low. So this is the lowest point that the market came before creating this high. Then you'll have a higher high that's created, right? Because the market will push higher. Then you will have a higher low because this low is higher than this low. And then you'll have another higher high, right? Basically, the market creating a higher high than this previous one that we saw, right? So now off of this structure here, what you can see 99% of the time, unless the market's moving sideways or it just breaks lower, right? If it continues in that cycle, it will do the same thing. It will come lower, create a higher low, right? Create a higher low, and then from that higher low, it will continue and make a new higher high. All right, so just for an example, because gold was doing this consistently on the down trend that we just had, right? With this whole time gold was going down, this whole kind of swing right here, we saw this consistent market structure that was being formed, right? So that's what you want to look for. And in order to know that you have proper market structure, there's a little tool here on the side. It's called your Fibonacci retracement or Fib retracement tool. In order to know that you have consistent market structure, you want the market to retrace, right, from this low point. That's your zero. That's where you want to start your fib, right? Start it from there and drag it to the right to that first high that we created. And then from that first high, you want the market to retrace down at least to a 50% level, right? 50% is minimum. And if it's not 50%, it's not considered a retracement, right? And then there's lower points that I won't get into today. That's a little bit more advanced, but lower points like the 0.618 and 0.786, those are areas that the market bounces off of more frequently, right? But you can see that point number 3 should be at least at 50% on this retracement. And then from there, we create a new high. And then what you can do is from your higher low, your third point of the market structure that you identified, take that same fib tool, put it to the high of the second higher high, and then wait for the market to come into that 50% level again, right? And then wait for the scanner to give you an entry within that area, right? So in this case with gold, right, we saw that gold had a higher high, right? We created a high at 3,500, and then we broke below and made a lower low, right? We had that high, we had this previous low that got taken out right here. We created a lower low, and then the market pushed a little bit higher and gave us now a lower high, right? So this is different for sells than buys. Here we had lower low, higher high. Here we have higher high, lower low. Then we had a higher low, and on the sells, we have a lower high, right? So from that lower high, we want to see the market give us at least a 50% retracement, which if you go here, in this case, we actually did not get 50%, but you can see that the market is starting to trend downwards continuously, right? You can see that we at a very high point. Actually, if I drag this out properly and actually put it to these exact points, we probably will get 50%. Just barely short, right? But you can tell that gold was wanting to take out some of these lows already, right? If we even drag this a little bit lower, no, we actually never got a full 50%, but we just barely missed 50% on this one here, right? From there, we can consider that a higher low because we can see that from this lower high, or consider it a lower high, sorry, from this lower high, we actually broke below this previous low to make a new lower low, right? So even though we didn't get 50% on this specific pullback here, we still created a lower low from this previous high that we made. All right, let me just get rid of this here. And then from this lower low and this high, if we now take the fib from here, drag it down to here, we can see that we had gotten 50% and even more, right? From this lower high to this lower low. So here we can see because we have our 4 points now, right? We have the highest high that we created. We have a low that was created here, a lower low that push back higher, which is a lower high. Then we broke through that lower low, created another lower low. Now we can look to find an entry somewhere beyond 50% of this market. And then from there, we also want to look, where are those targets, right? Where is uh, the fractional levels of gold, right? So for this one, for example, is 3465 is one of those levels. Just actually move that here. Do that again. 3465. That was one of the key levels there, right? So maybe we could have found something in here a little bit later on where it's kind of hard to go back and see what would have happened, but without the zone actually being there. But you can kind of see where these different areas after 50%, where the market is kind of bouncing off of these key areas, right? And then from there, now that we have established that we are going lower, we have that market structure, we have our 4 points. We look for our next potential point, which would have been this one, is our next lower high. And then from there, we wait for the market to break below this lower low and give us a new low, right? Which would have been right here, our lower low. And from there, now we do the same thing, right? Trading, it gets very boring because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? So now we have a second fib chart from here, the lower high that we created to the lower low, and we wait for 50%, right? We got 50% here, actually reacted off of our 50 zone, right? 34.50 and 34.45. Could have maybe got an entry off of there, right? And then you just do the same thing over and over and over again all the way down, right? So right now, the reason why I'm not taking anything on gold is we haven't really hit that level yet, right? We have a low here, which is our lower low. We created a high point, right? Because that high is higher than this high that we had back here. So we have a higher high. And then we created a low point here again, right? We kind of trace lower. We go from here, drag that. It just barely hit 50% right here and went higher. Now all that we're doing is waiting from this point where we hit 50%. We're waiting for something to happen. Let me get rid of this and clean this up a little bit. Where's this here? We're waiting for the market to now, from current price, retrace lower at least 50% and bounce off of one of these levels, right? And then it will give us this golden zone, this golden era in one of these key levels, and that's where we take our entries, right? That's what I do is I just wait for the market to come to these areas, mark up the fib, see if it's at least 50%. Are we consistently trending in a certain direction? Is the market giving me some kind of entry or potential entry zone? Right? That's what we kind of look for. Here, for example, we had a trade that gave us, the correct formula, right? We had a close of this candle above the zone. We had our check mark that appeared, right? The second candle didn't give us that retracement into here, but the candle after, right, you can see it moved down into the zone and went straight to take profit one and two, right? It gave us that entry right here. But, it's kind of hard to tell if the market wants to continue going higher at this point or if it's going to go lower, right? We don't really see some kind of structure to the market. That's why I personally would not have entered this trade, right? So it's very key to understand, is the market moving consistently higher? Is the market moving consistently lower? Or is the market just at a standstill? And if it's at a standstill, you want to wait for the market to move in one of those two directions, right? And give you something like that. If it breaks higher, you want to wait for it to come back lower and then higher again and give you that 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Or do we have our first point here? Then we go lower, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Now we're waiting for our and in this area, right? Very simple. The market will do the same thing over and over again. So if you don't see something right away, just remember market structure, wait for the market to react in one of those areas, those fractional areas with the zone that is created, and we'll definitely find something from there. Let's see what else is in here. Does anybody have any other questions? I'm not seeing any others in here. when you're looking at these higher highs and lower lows, are you looking for the daily or weekly highs and lows? Or that depends. I'm just looking on the 5 minute to see these highs and lows being created. Right? Everything that we're doing with this scanner is on the 5 minute time frame. You can see on the left side here. This is all 5 minute, right? Very small. That's why it's a scanner for scalping, getting in and out of the markets quickly, right? Is everything's on the 5 minute, and you can see that price is developing, giving us that market structure on the lower time frame. Is 5 minute typically? Well, that's 5 minute is the only time frame that I use, unless I'm adding a different strategy to it. Like I trade something called smart money concepts, which is more advanced trading strategy that I actually started learning from Donnie. Uh, I sometimes will use that strategy with the golden era scanner just to kind of see. With smart money, I usually trade higher time frames. And what I will do is if I see that on the higher time frames that gold is in an area that I want to either buy or sell from, I will look on the scanner to see if it's giving me a 5 minute entry in the direction that I see gold going into. Right. So there was a trade that it was last week before we had this absolute wild push to the upside. Gold was right in here somewhere. Right in here, it gave me um, the push down that I wanted to see on the bigger time frame for the other strategy that I was using. But then I came on here on the 5 minute to see what kind of entry I could potentially get. And in this area here, we actually ended up getting one of those entries at around 32.95, and gold ended up taking off from there, right? This was a longer term trade. We held that to about these highs here, right? That's with the different strategy. That was kind of the trade that we took, right? Was our entry zone was down here, take profit was up here, but it all came from the entry on the smaller time frame, on the 5 minute using the scanner, right? So you can mix and match if you already in the trading space and understand a different strategy and you want to add this scanner to it. It very well works. You know, this is one of those trades that we caught, um, and a very, very beautiful setup with that as well. Right, just higher time frame. We were looking at something, we ended up getting that lower time frame. We got the entry on there, and I personally closed here because I didn't really know what gold was gonna do. Obviously, that was a mistake. As you can see, we went a lot higher than that, but we still had a very good turnaround for profits. Right, it was about 600 pip move that we caught there. Right, but those trades don't happen every single time from the scanner, right? Most of the trades that I take, they are just scalping in and out of the market very quickly. But if I see something aligned with another strategy that I use, I implement the scanner to it as well to get the best possible entry that I can get, right? But with the scanner, last thing that I'll mention here before I'll pass it back to Donnie is once it hits your exit one and exit two or your invalidation zone, which is your stop loss, it will give you a flag. And once you see that flag, the trade is over. So now that you see in this case where we actually, right, we got the closure above, we got the check mark. This candle did not retrace back down, but this one did and hit take profit one and two in the same candle. It gave us the flag on that candle, meaning the trade is over. So now if it goes back into this zone, I'm not looking for another entry, right? This is just a one-time entry. Sometimes it will react off of it again. and maybe you'll get lucky. But once I see the flag, I'm not looking for another entry off of that specific zone. I want to see what the market is doing and kind of figure out after that another potential area to get into, right? But right now, does not really look like we're going to get an entry on the session today, but we'll see how price develops over the next little while and maybe we will get one. But hopefully that made sense for you guys. Hopefully you learned something from that. If you want access to the scanner, definitely go into the Jifu Live on the new website, the jifulive2.com. Go in there, check the scanner out, go on the 5 minute, mess around with it a little bit, implement what you learned today, and send me your trades that you're taking from there. Right. If you have me on Telegram, on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you guys use, whatever you want to find me on, it's all Mikey Hoff, two Y's, two F's. If you're taking some trades, send them to me. I'd love to see what you guys are doing with the scanner, and I would love to help you guys out more with it. But appreciate you guys' time, and thank you, Donnie, for bringing me on to do this training for you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys learned something today.
Let's get it, brother. Appreciate you for the breakdown. And one thing I'll say as well is obviously, Mike's been doing this for a long time. So if there's anything that's like way over your head or you're feeling lost, don't worry. Mike's been doing this for years. And I think it's important to understand and recognize where you're at in your journey. You don't want to compare your chapter one to Mike's chapter seven. He's been doing this for seven, almost 8 years. If we're taking it into consideration when he first discovered crypto indirectly through his pops. So it's one of those things where yeah, you gotta give yourself grace for where you're at, right? And understand that it's a process. Learning the even just market structure is something that will take time, and it's something that when you have learned the skill, you can then apply it and turn a profit, independently in the markets yourself, right? So, yeah, with that being said, there was something that I was taking a look at as a potential, opportunity, something that I was liking the looks of, and I'm going to see how this continues to develop once we jump off the session here, because I know we've been on here for just over an hour and 15 minutes here, I think, since the start of the actual training. But I was taking a look at the scanners that we have on Jifu. Obviously, Golden Arrow is the one that Mike just went over. There's a number of other ones that we have as well. And I was taking a look at specifically the Smartmonics scanner with Bitcoin, and I was liking the looks of potential sells. I believe this was the 5 minute time frame. This is a whole other scanner. I'm not going to go into like a whole training on it because we just spent a good amount of time going over the golden era scanner. This is another one that we have access to that marks out zones quite nicely. There's actually a couple really great opportunities on Bitcoin. Literally earlier today, I'll actually show you the one that I was taking a look at before dinner. This is on Trendwave, but there was like a phenomenal buy that was given out, and I'll show you guys the parameters that different scanners will give you. Obviously, it'll look a little bit different. This looks like probably crazy to a lot of you. I remember when I looked at this for the first time, I was like, "Yo, this is something." But you learn how to understand what you're looking at, right? But this was a buy idea that was given on the scanner. This was literally right before dinner, right before I was about to have dinner earlier today. I'll change the time zone to New York time, which is the same time zone, Eastern time for me out here in Montreal right now. And so this was like right around like 5:30, and the scanner gave a phenomenal trade. So entry was at this price level on Bitcoin, right around here, and you can kind of see where it says long as well. The idea was given in here. There's a little diamond logo as well, which will represent a buy idea using this scanner. And you can see the different entry, invalidation, which is your stop loss, and the different exit levels that were given here on this particular scanner. So entry was in this zone. Stop loss was beneath this low. And then the different take profits, you can see it literally went directly from where this entry price was. As soon as this entry was essentially activated, this thing flew to achieve all five targets in a very, very short period of time. This was like 10 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, which is insane. It's not always like that. We've had a very volatile day today for crypto. And it's nice. It's nice to use the scanners to, I guess, kind of identify opportunities a little bit more easily. Now, Golden Era, it's a little bit unique. You got to be a bit more patient with it. You got to wait for those setups to be developed for you. But a lot of the times, with different scanners, you will find different opportunities. So if you can't see something on Golden Era, obviously there's other scanners to take a peek at. And there was actually one that I was taking a look at on the smaller time frame here. This is a much smaller time frame on Bitcoin, and it's actually a sell idea that we were approaching the entry of at the time of us coming closer to the end of the session. And I do like the looks of Bitcoin to sell off here. This little raindrop or kind of this yeah, it's kind of like a blood drop. Interesting emoji for sure. Little raindrop here represents a sell. Okay. We kind of been in this zone of consolidation at a high point in price for Bitcoin. We just made a major move higher, so we're anticipating this thing to pull back. And the entry parameters that are given here, you have entry level, which we're coming up to, invalidation level, which is just above the highs here. So if in the event that price was to trade higher, obviously that's what's going to be your safety net, your stop loss on the trade, and then the different exits at each of these levels as well. And so I do like the looks of this for Bitcoin to sell off. I was seeing some confluence with some of the other scanners as well. Smart Monix was giving sells as well in the smaller time frames. So I do like the looks of Bitcoin to trade lower from where we're currently at. And I don't want to take too much more time on the session, but if there's an opportunity for us to potentially take sells on Bitcoin, I'll be sure to share those in the Telegram channel. So just keep your eyes out for that because I do like the looks of this for sells. I'm going to give it a little bit more time before sending any sort of an alert or, obviously don't want to jump into the trade prematurely here because it is possible we could see this thing chop around in the zone for a little bit longer. But I do like the looks of this. So I would be looking to take a sell down here once price reaches that level and shows evidence of wanting to continue lower. Okay, that's why the entry level is down here, not at current price. Okay, so we want to be patient for price to reach that level. And then obviously invalidation at the highs. And then I would be looking to take this thing at the very least to exit four for a 1 to 2 risk to reward. You can maybe be a little bit more refined with your risk. It's really, kind of up to you guys in terms of what you would want to do. But obviously, I'll give you guys those parameters if the trade looks good to potentially take in the Telegram group. So I do like the looks of Bitcoin selling off from here. This was even just my own markup that we actually ended up trading into this little point of interest back here. And so far we're rejecting. It's looking like we want to see price continue to sell off. We had a very, very bullish day on Bitcoin, and we've taken some very key levels out on even the daily time frame. Every candle on the daily time frame is representing one full day of trading. This was the previous day's candle, very strong, and it took out a lot of previous highs. So I would be anticipating tomorrow to be kind of the inverse, like not an exact duplication of what we saw today in the other direction, but I would want to see at least some sort of a pullback that I think is favorable for us to potentially take sells on BTC. This is an entry that I had marked up. I'm not in this trade. This is just something I had marked up hypothetically, but I do want to see, as we reach towards this low and that entry on the scanner, I'm curious to see if we can take potential sells to ride this thing lower. And so stay tuned in the Telegram channel for that. There might be a trade idea that's shared shortly after the session. And keep your eyes out for this. If you're already trading and you're like, all right, let me, kind of take this into consideration. Maybe you have access to the Jifu platform. You can pull this up, take a look at it yourself and kind of see if it resonates and aligns for you and your style of trading. But for me, I like the looks of this. And I do think I want to take sells on BTC to see a bit of a move lower here. But yeah, with that being said, guys, we'll be back with more trade ideas tomorrow. If not tonight with Bitcoin, then certainly tomorrow. And of course, we do have the full Jifu overview tomorrow as well. So for those of you guys that are like, yo, Jifu scanners look kind of cool, education looks kind of cool. We'll be actually overviewing a lot more of that in detail tomorrow on the final day for the free trial. So look forward to that. But guys, one time real quick, just for Mike, before we jump off here, can we just drop some threes in the chat for Mike and the training and the value that he shared on the call here this evening? I appreciate you for taking the time, brother, and it's exciting to see the growth in action and being able to kind of take on that mentor role. You've obviously, it's not your first rodeo. You've been doing this for a while. And it's just great to have had you on for day two of the boot camp and free trial, brother. I'm happy to have you on here and to co-host the call together, brother. It's truly an honor, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you again at some point very, very soon at West in BC. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you again very soon, bro. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna wrap up the session for today, and we will be back tomorrow, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the full overview of Jifu. Make sure you're on there. And looking forward to seeing you guys in the Telegram channel as well for potentially a trade idea on Bitcoin this evening. And if not this evening, then certainly tomorrow morning we'll be coming out with some more trade ideas. So be on the lookout for that. And much love, guys. Catch you guys very soon. I'm going to see if I can do the fireworks thing. Yeah, there we go. Boom. Zoom's got these cool like things now. It's kind of dope. I don't know if you guys are able to do it as well. Thumbs up for those of y'all on camera. I don't know if it's going to work for you. Sometimes it works for me, doesn't always. What about the balloons? All right, well, there we go. Perfect. Amazing. But yeah, guys, enjoy the rest of the evening and talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.